Welcome to Power Keys, a show all about, I guess, memorable game, memorable boss stage, and a lot of chat in between. Now, to bring back this podcast with a bang, I wanted to start up with a great guest. Currently the senior community manager at
Keep going.
Currently the senior community manager at Raw Fury, responsible for games such as Star Renegades, Snufkin Melody of Moomin Valley, and plenty more. Since switching careers being an English teacher to a community manager, Gemma also streams on Twitch, having partner status, showcasing her stand love-full passion for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and more, with a fantastic intro video that I just spotted to boot as well, which is incredible, as well as being a songwriter and a great singer, of which many covers can be found on her SoundCloud. But she also wrote an X, formerly Twitter, cutting through the over-seriousness of so many posts that I see daily that make scrolling through the site far more enjoyable. Based in London, she can only be Gemma Garner, or Gemmathy.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm truly, truly honoured that someone would appreciate my tweets.
Yes.
More than anything else.
Yes.
Should we call them X's, or I don't like that.
I don't like it. Someone said Zeets to me a few weeks ago, and I thought, I don't want to talk to you ever again.
I don't like that at all. That feels offensive almost. I don't like it.
Definitely.
But
I don't know. I'm just still sticking with tweets, really. That's what I grew up with.
I think so too.
Yeah. Nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree.
But yeah, I mean, I think I kind of well, we haven't met in person, but I think someone kind of retweeted like yourself on something on one of your many, obviously viral tweets, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to be following Gemma. And then I just stumbled across your Twitch and everything else, and I thought, oh, what a great game. And it's been good. I mean, you seem to have a very eclectic, busy, hobbyist, everything. I mean, it must be a fun time, to be fair, to be Gemmathy.
It's very fun. I tell you something, it's hell in here. It's absolute hell in here. There's a million things happening all at once. On any given day, there's 10 different things that I want to be and that I want to do with my life. You could ask me on a different hour and I'll tell you that I want to do something entirely different with my life. And yet somehow I ended up in the games industry. So that's where I am.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, even we were even going to tangents as well, even before we recorded, because I mean, I have to mention this really for our listeners, really. The radiator that you have in your room is incredible. I mean, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So I kindly informed Daryl before we started this podcast that I can dry an entire bedsheet on the radiator. Sometimes a duvet cover with the double line.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
Wow.
On there in maybe a few hours. That's done.
That's pretty
completely
amazing.
Dried.
That's pretty. Is that the only kind of vertical radiator you have, or you got a few more?
That's the biggest one. I have one more. Yeah, I have one more, but it's not vertical, it's horizontal, which, by the way, I always get the two mixed up. How do you remember the difference between horizontal and vertical?
Yeah, I have no idea. No.
Is it just something you know?
I think when I was a kid, I used to remember because a V is almost vertical. I just went from there, and horizontal.
That's so smart.
Yeah, I just went from that. Yeah, but I think also what was it, the sea as well on the horizon, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, maybe that, and that's But I still stumble. at 35 years old.
Well, it was very impressive. You were very quick to notice that that's vertical, so I think you're doing good.
Great. No, that's good. So, we've already had the Radiator talk, which is a fantastic return to this show. So, we're on a roll. So,
yeah,
I've not really done this in about 2 years, Gem, and it's an interesting thing, really, because obviously you've got your, from what I've seen on Twitch, your 7K followers, and
oh god, I don't know.
And from what I've kind of seen, I didn't mention in the intro that you had I could be wrong in this, a Reddit following with a few others or something there, something happened.
It's complicated. My relationship, I think, with having an online persona has been very complex. It started when I was in my early 20s. I dated somebody who worked for a YouTube channel, and I had no following whatsoever, and I was training to be a teacher. So if anything, like quite the contrary, we were told, wipe any presence of your existence. I would have panic attacks about it. And then it was so the Yogscast, cast, and I would appear occasionally, like I would go to their events and stuff, and occasionally I would appear on camera, and there was like a karaoke stream we did or something, and a barbecue stream we did, reluctantly so, because I knew some of the kids could be watching, but I was there, and both times I would become a meme. And from there, people started to follow me, and I ended up working in games, which meant I could have a public following. And it just went from there. And it's really strange, because I feel like when I started doing it, I was very anti-content creation. I used to make fun of streaming. I used to make fun of the whole culture. And then there was maybe a year where I took it quite seriously. And I would do it regularly, and I developed a kind of brand. And I developed more of a following there, and that's where I got most of the followers, I would say. And I had quite a good regular viewership of like 100 to 150 people. And then I just stopped. I didn't like it and disappeared for long lengths of time. And now I kind of have this relationship where I'm very resistant to that, this idea of content creation or like influencer culture. And when I stream, like if you tune into my streams, it's very much so me doing it once in a blue moon, playing a game I really want to play and not really engaging the audience. Like, I think because at my job day to day, I'm having to work really hard to engage people. When it comes to the streaming, it very much so feels like I'm doing this for me. And I don't care, which is just insane. It's like, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, why are you watching this? Why are you watching this? I'm sitting here scrolling in silence. Why are you watching this? So it's been a real roller coaster, I feel, and like very reflective, I feel, of how it feels to work in games now. I think there's such an oversaturation of content that unless you really, really want to do it, I think it's really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly different from when I was growing up. Like, the only place I would be able to hear about games or see games would be shows. It could be bits on Channel 4 or Games Master or the magazines, and that'd be it. And then, obviously, YouTube and everything else happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I have kind of a Twitch profile too. I mean, it's not as obviously as massively successful as like such as yours and everything else.
Oh God, no.
But it's almost kind of like an outlet to kind of express like what we enjoy to do without the restrictions of like our jobs and things like that. But even still, I mean, it still kind of feels like you have to do something. You have to kind of like meet a certain demand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's still in this day and age, like, still seems like oddly pressurizing still.
It's really intense, and it's something I even feel, even though I've made it so explicitly clear that like I am not streaming for any reason other than purely selfish reasons, that I'm just doing it. There are still occasions where, I don't get the viewership I used to because I'm streaming once a year for an hour, and I'll sometimes sit there and I'll look at my viewership and I'll be like, oh, it's a little embarrassing that it's so different compared to all these people that are like working really hard. So for example, my sister, she and I always grew up gaming together. She very much so, she would watch me game, and she was resistant to playing herself. And then 4 or so years ago, I can't remember, it was when Valorant started, I showed it to her and she just got obsessed and she started streaming. And I remember when she started streaming, I was like, where's this gonna go? Because she had no interaction with games whatsoever. She was at university to become a singer. And then she just did it. Like every single day she was streaming, full esports, full commitment to the game, full commitment to kind of interacting with the right people, being present in other people's communities. And now my sister's career in esports and streaming is, I can't even believe it sometimes. She's developed this really sweet and very effective community, with very regular viewership. She's in Berlin right now streaming at a Valorant esports event. Oh, wow. She's flying off week by week to stuff. And I see stuff like that of people that are really committing themselves to it. And I think that's the expectation now, almost, I feel. And if you were to look at something like me, and I'm not, I don't want to be too like down on myself or anything like that. I am in such a lucky position where somehow I have like this, it is like a micro community, but I have a community of people, especially on Twitter. I'm very lucky that I have those people, and I have people that stick around regardless of what I put out there. And I'm very lucky that I don't have the pressure that, say, my sister has, where she has to deliver a certain kind of product now. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but all of this is to say that I think content creation right now is in the games world is just, whether you're good at it or you're bad at it, or you've got a following or you don't have a following, it does feel quite exhausting either way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that kind of also applies like to social media as well. I mean, I suppose that's kind of like why like I kind of enjoy like kind of like seeing like your tweets and stuff, because you don't treat it seriously. Because a lot of people, a lot of people out there who do, whereas I look at yours and I look at others and it's like it's just having a laugh, which I think social media should be, that's what it should be used for. So I kind of feel like that kind of like factors in there as well for you.
Do you feel, it's something I've definitely noticed in the games industry, especially, where it does feel like Twitter almost has become a LinkedIn of sorts, where it's like everybody is projecting a really specific perception of themselves. And that's not to say that it's not good, because I've seen so much, like you and I connecting with each other, you and I having the opportunity to speak to each other. That's incredible. I've met so many amazing people, to the point that I can go to games events now and be like, I know you from Twitter, I know you from this, I know you from this. But I do also feel that like I said, I think everybody now feels this pressure to influencerize themselves.
Yeah.
I feel it. Everyone feels it. And for some people that works. For me, I can't think of anything worse. So if I can wake up and completely resist that by tweeting my innermost worst thoughts, then I will, and despite the fact that in 10 years when I have kids, they're gonna look back and be like, why did you tweet, can I swear, can I say
absolutely
gross stuff? They'll be like, I think I made a tweet like 5 years ago where I was watching a movie with Al Pacino in it, and I was like, I know this is too gross, but I tweeted about wanting Al Pacino, but in quite a grotesque way. And I just imagine in 10 years' time, like being greeted by a 10-year-old with a printed off tweet of me talking about Al Pacino and being like, why did you jeopardize my future like this? And I won't know what to say, because I wanted to be stupid on Twitter on that day. I don't know.
You know what? That's a really great point that you've made, because so I became a dad last year, and even way before that, there were people, which obviously I have no issue with, of course, where they'll have pictures and statuses about their kids, or act as if they are their children wishing someone else happy birthday or something. And me and my other half, we were like, we are not going to do any of that. We're going to do one photo of when he's born, and that's it. And we've stuck to that. But and some people have asked since, how come we don't see him on social media and stuff? It's well, because we don't want to. Because the thing is,
it's the expectation now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of things. Well, I mean, for instance, take Meta AI. I mean, I know that if you put a photo up to Facebook, it's going to train the AI for certain generative things and stuff like that. But also, it's like you just said, in 10 years' time, I don't want him to look back on Facebook when it's a dumpster fire, or more so, and he's like, why did you post a picture of me at 3 months old, like, in a bucket or something? And it's like, I don't want to have that conversation. So you're totally right. You're totally right on that.
Yeah. It's something that I do think about, and I think there is this idea right now. I'm talking about how, like negative, the kind of influencerization of the regular person has become. And I think a product of that is you're either going all the way in one direction or all the way in the other right now, where it's like you're either sharing everything and really carefully curating how you look, or you're like just not present on social media at all. And I think not being present on social media, that's a luxury not many people can afford. It's like I said about Twitter being LinkedIn these days. Like for a lot of people, you need social media for your careers, for your connections, for all these different kinds of things. And I think a lot of people don't realize there is this middle. Same thing with mental health, it's either you're in it or you're all the way off it, but there is a middle ground where you can curate what's around you. You can, even though obviously things are going to be pushed to you these days, especially with Twitter, regardless of what you follow, but you can very much so curate what you want to see. And you can also curate by not curating the way you are, choosing to share or not to share certain things, choosing to not have to work on Twitter, for example. I'm like staunchly anti-working on my personal Twitter. I think it's become a really common thing with community managers, especially this idea of, well, you should be a community manager around the clock. You should be tweeting as a community manager. You should be mingling, and you should be like, it's almost become, again, the influencerization of community managers. And that's something I'm really resistant to as well. I'm like, I don't have to do that. Work is 9 to 5. If you're asking me to then go on, you have to have different ways of using social media, is what I mean to say. Is like, it doesn't have to be all the way one or the way the other. There are gray areas and different ways that you can present yourself and receive information.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm jumping ahead a bit really of the chat with you, Jem, but I suppose like in the position you're in now as senior community manager, I mean, I imagine like you're able to kind of like, put these like these things through of like, it is going to be 9 to 5. It's not a 24/7 thing.
I am very lucky. I think when I started in the industry, and this is something I say to pretty much every community or marketing person, is when you start in the industry, you do have less. And this isn't good, and I don't advocate for it. I think everybody should be able to advocate for a good work-life balance at all stages of your career. And that's something I advocate for with the people I work with as well. When people first start working with us, I'm always advocating for, this is a job, but I had to do like 3 years of the typical working 12-hour days, doing office management. In my first job, I worked in an office basically filled with men who didn't know how to order fruit to the office, so I did that. And for example, agency work, where there's an expectation that you work your life away and you commit as much as you can and you never say no. So I do feel like I am in a really lucky position now. I've only had five years in the industry as a community manager, but because it's still a relatively new concept in a more popularized sense, I definitely am in a position where I can set those boundaries, and that's something I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I think that kind of leads into like one of my first questions, really, because I mean, I was like looking at your LinkedIn, of course, like kind of seeing your history, and what really surprised me is like, you trained as an English teacher for secondary school, and like not long after you graduated in 2019, you then you became the community manager at Endemic Creations, and so that just kind of like opened up a whole load of questions for me, Jen, because it's like, what made you not want to become a teacher in the first place? But what made you want to make that switch from teaching to community management?
It's a funny story because I grew up playing games. It was a big part of my identity, but I knew nothing about them. I knew absolutely nothing. It was very much so a situation where my stepbrother gave me his Xbox 360 and all of his games when he changed to PlayStation. And I started to play games like Mirror's Edge and Assassin's Creed and GTA 4 and Portal. And my eyes were opened, and I was like, I have such fond memories of being in my room with my blinds closed in the dead of summer,
Yeah, same.
avoiding everything,
Yeah.
and coming home from school and playing Left 4 Dead 2 in a party with my friends. And at that time, I was like, oh, okay, this is like one of my great loves. I know this is one of my great loves, but I didn't know there was anything I could do with that. In school, I excelled in English and media, but nothing else. Like I would just about get by with maths. I would just get by with IT. And then when I went and did my A levels, I guess I kind of followed in that more academic route of, okay, well, I'm good at English, and so that's what I should do. It's kind of like I should do what I'm okay at. And I felt a lot of pressure to do something worthwhile. And again, I hadn't been introduced to the many different things that are involved in games. In my mind, these games just exist.
Yeah.
For me and me alone. So I went to university and I studied, first of all, English literature. And that's when I met my then boyfriend, who worked for the YouTube channel. And his job was editing videos of people playing video games all day. And I just remember thinking, that's a job. That's a job people do. And he was like, yeah, you can do any job, actually, if you really want to. And so I changed my degree from second and third year to creative writing and media, because that was the closest I could get to something at least a little bit more games focused. And while I was there, I did a lot of different modules about writing narratives. And I did an independent project where I worked alongside Naomi Alderman, who she worked on some game apps, I think.
Right.
And she since has written this book called The Power that was massively famous. And she taught me about writing game narratives and writing dialogue and things like that. So I made my own little game in Twine. And that was the only job that I was like, oh, maybe I could do this, because I can't program. I'm too late for all this, because Lord knows programmers these days, they're trained from like 14 years old. They know what they want to do. They go straight from uni into the job they want. And from there, I graduated. I was working any job that would pay the bills. I was a receptionist, a waitress, and I loved all of it. But it wasn't fulfilling. And in my spare time, I was volunteering, and I was just desperate to get any and all experience under my belt. And Endemic Creations in Bristol, they were the nearest games company that I knew of, and I had played Plague Inc. And I thought, if I apply to them enough times, maybe they'll answer me. And I just applied to whatever they put out. Every time they put a job out, even if it was completely did not apply to me.
Yeah, sure.
I would apply. And, I was applying to jobs in California. There was a narrative job for Pixelberry Studios, who make like choice games for teenage girls. And they were the first people that responded to me. And I was like, oh my God, I just have to keep going. So I was just applying to anything I could. And then after like a couple of years, I was like, I can't do this. Nobody wants me, because of course they didn't, because I wasn't qualified. I didn't know what I was applying to and why and how. So I was like, well, what else am I good at? I'm good at people. I'm good at English. I'm good at media. teaching. And they were giving out bursaries at the time because they were desperate for teachers. So I decided to train to be an English teacher. When I was training, I worked in a couple of different schools and I liked it a lot. I liked the kids, but it was exhausting and like a little bit soul destroying, the admin. And then one day, just as I'd accepted a job at like probably my dream school, I loved working with naughty kids. I got an email from Endemic and they were like, listen, have you ever heard of community management? Because you've been applying so many times. We're happy to talk to you about this. We think you might be qualified for it.
Wow.
And I went in and they were like, okay, here's the situation. You know, it's like a 4-day work week, super low level, a lot of like job hopping from support to comms to socials, and like half of what I was going to get paid as a teacher. But I was like, okay,
yeah,
sign me up. Sign me up. And that was it. I had to make a call to the school that I declined the job at. And I woke up at 7 a.m. to 5 very angry voicemails from a head teacher telling me that I'd single-handedly destroyed the school's finances.
What? What?
I don't know. I knew that I had exiled myself from teaching because I had been told that if you accept a job and then decline it, it's very bad. Very, very bad.
Right.
But it was worth it.
Yes.
Because now I've been doing it for 5 years and I feel pretty settled.
Have you ever heard back from that head teacher?
Never, not once. And I don't even remember him. I don't even remember what he looks like.
Good.
No, imagine if I was like, yes, Jaylee, and he haunts my dreams all.
Yeah. He comes on, like on the tweets, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's amazing. No,
It's a long story, but I got there in the end.
Yeah, definitely. It just kind of shows, doesn't it? Like a lot of perseverance like pays off. And I think
100%.
And it kind of like shows like, if it was the fact that it was like lower pay than a teaching job, it's because you were still following what you love to do, and it worked out, So, but I imagine like, even like when you got the job, I mean, you must have had like an oh shit moment and thinking like, right, this is great, but how does this? What's going to happen?
It was a whole new world.
Yeah.
It was just crazy, and I have such fond memories of it because it was actually one of my only experiences working. No, in a studio in an office, because after that I did an agency which had an office, and then after that it was like pandemic, and now it's everywhere I've worked has been. They've got like one central office people fly to, but everybody works around the world. It was really valuable. I worked under this guy called Matt, who I actually saw at an event recently at WASD. Gemma, I was like, oh my god. He taught me so much of what I know about copywriting and writing in a way that is nice not only for the reader but also for the company. I think there's obviously a lot of expectations from companies in marketing for their tone of voice and things. And he just taught me everything I needed to know. It was a lot of grunt work, replying to hundreds of support messages. Why isn't the game free? For a 99p game, mind you.
What?
Now, I know we're in a cost of living crisis now, but, there's only so many ways you can say, if you want the game, buy the game.
Yeah, like it's £1. Like, come on.
And it was actually really interesting because I worked at Endemic at the start of the pandemic.
I was going to say, that's quite the coincidence.
It was crazy because it was part of my job was to kind of create the world building outside of the game account, was to look at science websites and look at medical websites and tweet news. So super early on, I was aware of this virus in Wuhan, and I was like, we were always really careful what we talked about, because if we do talk about different like illnesses happening, we have to be really careful. So initially I was like, especially because it was abroad, I was like, I don't want to touch on it because I don't understand it yet. So we didn't touch on it or anything. And then I remember being told, as everybody was, we're going to take 2 weeks off, and it's going to be 2 weeks of isolation.
Mm-hmm.
That was then pretty permanent until I left. And our game sales were crazy. Like, we shot up to the top of all of the game charts on the app stores and things. And initially, the response was really negative, actually. Publications were talking about how we were kind of profiting off of a really negative thing. And then I remember we were having these conversations of, how do we turn this around? And I said, well, we can't talk about it unless we're putting our money where our mouth is, really. So we donated, I think it was $250,000 of our sales to the efforts in curing coronavirus, or, I can't remember, I think it was WHO. But and from then on, I carried that into all of my future jobs, where now I feel like, if we're ever going to talk about a real world event, money speaks so much more than a statement does.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody speaks these days, but doesn't pay, I guess. But we were in a position where we could.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
No, I bet. No, I do remember that, actually, during that time, because I remember playing Plague, years before. Like, I'm sure it was in 2014, 15 on my iPhone 5, and it was great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do remember some of the articles going look, if you kind of want to play coronavirus the game, get Plague Inc. Not a great headline, but
it's true. It's true.
Yeah. But
we had these create your own scenarios thing, and all of the scenarios people were making were like coronavirus, COVID-19. It was crazy, and it was hard to know whether it felt good or not. Because on one hand, as a community manager, knowing that you have an audience, and that your audience there was always an audience, but an especially captive audience at that time is great. That's all you want. But knowing that it's off the back of something that is changing the way we live feels very strange.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I suppose in a strange sort of way, I guess it almost kind of helps cut your teeth as well in community management, because that was just couldn't have been more intense and unique. Really.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it must have got you ready for your future jobs, really. For
it did. It did. It was because I feel like there was just a good few years. I say that there was a good few years there where everything was crazy. It's crazy now. Everything is crazy. There's all of these world events happening.
Yeah.
All of the time. After the first job I got after Endemic was I worked for Adopt Me, which is a game on Roblox for children. And at this time, of course, all the police brutality in America was happening, and people were talking about it. And the thing is, young people don't necessarily have the vocabulary or understanding to talk about these things in appropriate ways. And we saw a lot of racism, and we saw a lot of divide. We had a Discord with I think it was 200 and something thousand young people who say they're over 13, but they're probably not. And it would just be message upon message, and of people weighing in on something that they just didn't understand. And that was another situation where it was well, what do we do? What do we do? And I think at that time we did just make a statement, which was honestly really terrifying, where we basically were we're in support of the protests in America. And I think we lost actually quite a lot of parents from that. I think we had a big community in America, and I think a lot of the more kind of right-wing parents stopped their kids from playing because of that. But I don't regret it. I think that was the right thing to do at that time.
Yeah.
It was very difficult, though.
Yeah, no, definitely. Obviously, stop me if you don't want me to broach it, but I imagine, with certain things like this, it must have like not really helped your mental health either in certain things like this, because like the amount of anxiety and distress that all of these events would have brought, and also with the fact that you're managing like these companies and these products and these IPs, making sure it's got the right impression. I mean, that must have just been hell stressful in a way.
It was, and I think I kept going until I did the agency work, and that was where it really was solidified for me, because when I worked for Fourth Floor. I was working on so many different deals. I was working with Square Enix on the Life is Strange TikTok account, which was my favorite thing to do. But I was also working with NetEase for a Lord of the Rings mobile game. I was working a lot of projects for the company, different brands and things like that. I was working with Amazon to run their Twitch comms and run streams and moderate and things. And that was when I was working like 12-hour days. And I also think there is a bit of an expectation with agency work to be available around the clock. Like NetEase is based in China. And so that was where I worked my hardest for sure. And I really, really burnt out, and I almost was ready to quit. Not due to any fault of, any specific company or anything like that, but just because I was so tired. So tired. It was like I stopped doing teaching because teaching felt exhausting and round the clock and took so much of my identity. And now I've come onto this dream job where I'm doing the same. And that was where my mental health definitely was at a low. But I managed to pick myself back up. I think I took some time off, and I found Raw Fury, who I've been working for now for like 2.5 years, maybe.
It says October 21.
Oh, I don't know how long that is. Is that almost 3 years?
Almost 3 years, yeah.
Oh my gosh! Well, Raw Fury changed everything. I think to step out of agency work, which I think anybody that can and does do agency work is brilliant. I've seen some agencies, some specific boutique agencies in London and around the UK do it really well, actually. So like yours truly, they are really brilliant, and they seem to be embracing a better work-life balance. But Raw Fury was, by working for a publisher, I could apply myself to a variety of different games and different genres, but I also had the distance where I wasn't working for like 5 different clients. I had a team of people that I was with consistently, and there was clear boundaries in that. And honestly, that's the only reason I was able to stay was the team at Raw Fury. I think they've been great.
Amazing. No, that's great. Let's just pause on that for a second then, Gem, because we'll get into the first question for the show, and then we'll come back to this if that's all right.
Of course.
So with Power Keys then, I always ask the guest 2 questions, and one of them is a memorable game and the other one is a memorable boss stage. Now, I asked you about this a few weeks ago now, and I always thought like maybe it could be a certain game that she streams, but it could be something else. And I thought, well, what have you picked, Gem? What is it you've picked for this episode?
Well, I've been thinking very much. The memorable game bit is really difficult because I've had so many memorable game experiences. And the memorable boss was even harder because I can't remember a lot of the bosses I've played. I think most memorable game for me has to be The Witcher 3. I was thinking there's so many different ways in which things have been memorable, but I remember I played The Witcher 3 when I was in university, and I would skive off of uni every day, and I would sit at my desk, and because the sun was so bright coming through the windows, I would have a blanket over the screen and over my head, and I just played it round the clock. And in my spare time, the lectures I did go to, I was reading the lore on my phone to better understand everything that was happening. Wow. I think with that game, I'd always been incredibly resistant to fantasy, middle-age kind of games. And I always used to say no. I tried Skyrim, which I should have loved, but I didn't get into it.
Same, yeah.
I just never did.
No.
And so I was always super resistant. And so to finally have a world that I was so deeply immersed in, the music, the sound design, the characters, the how satisfying it was doing all the quests, the side quests, the main story, the choices, the deep history and lore that you could get stuck into. I will never forget the experience of playing that game. Never ever forget that.
Wow, yeah. I mean, we're recording my last day of the Steam summer sale, like wrapping up, and I'm sure I've seen it on sale again, like the Game of the Year edition. And I think I've got it, but oh man, it's such a bargain these days. It is. You're right. It's so good, isn't it?
It is so solid. It's just solid and like such a positive play experience. It's like the true meaning of immersion is, going through, I'm trying to remember the names of the towns now. Is it Novigrad or something?
Something like that.
Riding your horse through Novigrad and hearing like the music and the sound of the winds going through the grass. And whenever the wind is going, Garrett always says, "Wind's howling." Like I'll just never ever forget it. It's so incredible.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like there was like so many DLC and expansion passes and everything else. So I imagine you.
I've not played any of them.
Haven't you? Oh, right.
And that's what I'm like. I need to go back to it.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, do you reckon you'll stream it? Do you reckon you'll?
See, that's the hard thing. I tried streaming it.
Right.
And the problem is when you stream a game, it becomes harder to play. So to stream a game, you have to really, really want to play it, which is why recently I got really into Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. I think because I'd never played that before. It's janky enough that I have something to laugh at. It's well written enough and immersive enough and crazy enough that I'm involved. And it's also like just the wackiest, most insane thing. It's crazy because I think I streamed like 50 to 60 hours of that game, and I've never the last time I did that was when I replayed Fallout New Vegas, which I love for exactly the same reasons. So
no, 100%. Yeah, because I mean, I've been like playing Fallout 3 on my Steam Deck, and it's so good. I mean, like I can just gush about the Steam Deck for hours, but it's just ridiculous just how good like you can just play like a game like The Witcher or Fallout or whenever you want, really. And it's just so good.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's so
That's
good.
Crazy.
It's so good.
Well, I'm very jealous. You're jealous of my Radiator. I'm jealous of your Steam Deck.
Oh no, I mean we can swap. It's fine. I'll have the Radiator.
Yeah, I'll rip it out of the wall. Send it your way.
Yeah, I'll try my duvet.
I want in exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to. Yeah, happy to. No, that's great. Yeah, so Witcher 3. So I'm not like up to date on like what CD Projekt is work. I'm sure they work on a Cyberpunk sequel, but are they working on a Witcher sequel?
Don't think so. I know they were working on a Cyberpunk sequel.
Yeah.
With Idris Elba, or has that come out? I'm not too certain. Yeah. I'm not too certain.
No, that's fair. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
So you know what? I think like instead of like kind of like just going back to your career, I think we'll just cover like the memorable boss now, because I feel like
do it.
We've got like I kind of want to cover a few more tangents. So yeah, memorable boss, Gem. What have you picked?
This was so hard because, like I said, I don't remember a lot of things. I can just remember how it felt to play them.
Yeah.
I ran through a million different things in my head. I was like, okay, Mass Effect, like Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 have some really, really cool boss fights. I remember there's one in Mass Effect 3 where you play against a clone of yourself who's like super powered. And I remember that being really memorable. Portal 2 has some really, really, well, the memorable boss fight with GLaDOS. And you put yourself on the moon and release... Was it Wheatley or someone in space? Wheatley, I can't remember. Yeah, that's very memorable. But I think the choice I made is in the DLC for Fallout New Vegas, Lonesome Road. There is a boss battle, but I don't know if this counts because I never battle him. I always talk myself out of the battle. It's like you find this courier that you've been looking for, Ulysses, and if you have good enough speech, then you can convince him to not fight you and to like team up with you to fight all of these other things I can't remember. And then you make a decision whether or not to send a nuke to the Legion or to NCR. And or you can sacrifice, I think, your robot to do neither.
Okay.
Now I always do the boring thing. I always do the boring thing, which is I convince him to fight alongside me, and then I sacrifice the robot. But I think if I replayed it now, I would send that nuke straight to the Legion. I really would. I really would. But I think that's probably one of my most memorable ones. I distinctly remember like the relief of getting there, replaying it multiple times to check each choice that I made.
Yeah.
Replaying it each time to see how it felt to fight him, realize how difficult it is to fight him, and go back and do the speech option instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really good one, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I think, I suppose then, like, that kind of relates to kind of what you just said like a moment ago about how much it made you felt really with this, because that must have really kind of made you feel invested, emotionally invested into like making sure that person fights alongside you and everything there, really.
Yeah, I get very, very invested when I know there's other choices in a game.
Yeah.
Like if I do something and I realize I had another choice, it will plague me. I remember when I played Cyberpunk, there is a quest where you fist fight this guy and you can win his car. And I won the fist fight and I saw all of the options and I think I half read them and I was like, I can either take all his money, take his money and his car, or whatever. And I thought I had no other options. So I took his car because I was like, it sounds like a really cool car. And then as I'm continuing to play and people are talking to me, because I can't remember, I don't know if it was, no, it was, I Googled it and somebody was like, in Reddit was like, if you take any of his things, you're evil. Like has a gambling addiction and like his wife is really struggling and he's just had a son or something like that. And I'm not even kidding. I'd already played about 6 hours after that. I rewound all the way back to that fight and redid 6 hours worth of gameplay just to not take his car. So if I find out that there's choices, especially in a boss fight, I will be making those choices for sure.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, like, I do remember like certain bosses where you do have a choice. I mean, there was one in BioShock with Fort Frolic, and you've got like a couple of choices there, and it's like,
I didn't even think of BioShock.
I can sense like the rage and the frustration now.
I should have thought about that. Oh my god, yeah.
It's amazing just like how like bosses have kind of like gone from like, say, you reach the end of a stage like Sonic and then you beat Robotnik and now you've got choices. I mean, right now actually, like so on my Apple TV, like they've allowed like emulators that you can play.
Oh wow.
So I've been able to like load up and for anyone listening, I own the game, so it's all fine. But I've been like playing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and I love it because it has the boss Nemesis where you have the choice of avoiding him or doing certain things. And because this RetroArch has like quick saves, what I do is like I'll do one choice and then see what happens and go back.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's so good because you just want to kind of see like, it's almost like it kind of like taps into like my kind of love for time travel stuff, like seeing what happens in the paths. I'm going into a tangent, I'm sorry, but that's pretty much like...
No, I'm listening. I'm sitting and I'm listening. I agree.
Yeah, so it's just stuff like that. And like, I think there's a moment where you can blow up the restaurant that he kind of just strolls into. I don't know whether he wants a margarita or something, but it's like you've got like the choice of whether to blow the kitchen up or hide in the basement. And
I don't think I've played 3, by the way.
Really? Oh.
So I have only just started playing Resident Evil. I played 2, the remake.
Yeah.
And I played 5, the remake.
Oh, okay.
Which were both remarkable.
Yeah.
and I loved them. So, do you think I should play 3?
Right.
Is
Yes.
that the one where it's him and the girl? Or is that a different one?
Oh, to be fair, there's a few games like that. I mean, this one. So this is the original one from '99. So it's got the
Yeah,
tank
yeah.
controls and everything. So um, there was a remake, but it's personally, I just don't feel like it's as good. Like if this was the
I'm looking
'90s,
it up now.
yeah, I'd say it was like a rental, like the remake of 3. Whereas this one, like it has the choices, it has everything there. So if you can, Gem, like,
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
no, I've never played.
Yeah,
I have to play it.
yeah, yeah.
So, not the remake,
Not the remake here, the original
the original.
'99. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm on board with playing originals. If I Now that I've been playing Vampire the Masquerade, my current like standard of graphics is very low. So just I'm currently deciding I think I should keep playing things with like
Yes.
older graphics.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a retro gamer at heart, so it's like I don't care that a game from '99 is on my 4K TV, like in
Yeah.
non-widescreen. I'm totally happy with that. But yeah, like the choices in a boss, I feel like is so good because Nemesis was my first one for that kind of boss choices. So I do, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. It's great.
Wait, can I change my answer for the boss fight?
Yeah, fine.
Can I completely change my answer?
Go for it? Yeah.
Tomb Raider Legend.
Okay.
But I don't know if it counts as a boss fight.
Right.
It's where she goes to Japan
Yeah.
and she goes to speak to the guy, and then it turns out that it's actually a bus stop, and like they're there for her. I can't remember the details of this. And she is wearing that really fun little dress, and she rips up the sides of her dresses, and then she's doing backflips and shooting everybody. And then she goes all the way up to the roof, and there's a Ducati.
Yes.
She rides the Ducati. Yeah. Okay, I don't think that's a boss fight, but if it were, let's say that's my honorary answer.
Yeah, I can count that. That's absolutely fine. I mean, look,
Okay.
I love a Tomb Raider. I'm sure. So it's like absolutely 100%
We'll allow
agree.
it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Oh, yeah. That's.
What's your favorite boss fight? I'm sure you've said it maybe a few times. Have you?
I mean, I've just written a book about them, so it's like it's a bit.
You should have a favorite then.
I've got a few. I mean, like Nemesis is one.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, like Portal 2, like you say. I mean, just amazing that it goes from fighting like Wheatley to then suddenly you're transported into the moon.
Oh,
Like it's just
crazy.
when I first
Yeah.
played that on PS3, that just blew my mind. Like because I just thought like after you've played a game like it's like confined into this center and
Yeah.
you even go underground and you're
Yeah.
going through the ages of aperture and suddenly like you're transported to the moon and it's just so good and the writing in it is just like some of the best that I've ever.
World class.
Yeah.
World class. So non-formulaic, like creating an entirely new standard of what it means to experience a game story. It's so that's one of the early games I played, like because I came to games quite late. I kind of encountered Portal and BioShock and all these kinds of really actually more complex stories all at once.
Yeah.
And I think it was such a good story.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, like I remember like just playing the early Valve games like Half-Life 2 and even just like Half-Life like the original and just being blown away because like even before that, I grew up on PlayStation and Mega Drive and no, don't get me wrong, like Mega Drive didn't have a lot of like narrative structure in some games, but there were in like games like Sonic 3. I mean, there were like mini cutscenes and it drove a story along.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Half-Life and Portal and the Orange Box, it was just amazing, really.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I'm going off a tangent again about bosses. So, right, Wheatley, Nemesis. I do for some reason. I don't know whether I'm a sadist or something, but I like an unbeatable boss.
No. I was having this conversation with my boyfriend the other day. He was like, "You should try Elden Ring." I said, "Do you know who I am?"
Right.
I played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines in God mode towards the end because I do not find suffering rewarding like people like you.
I mean, right. It's not for the suffering that I enjoy. I think it's the fact that I try every single method like imaginable, and wondering like, how to beat them and how to avoid it. I did it in games like Zone of the Enders or Star Wars. Is it Fallen Order? Yeah, Fallen Order, Jedi Order, Fallen Order. One of them, where you face Vader and you just can't win. And I just kind of find it like really like just fun, the fact that you're playing against something that you just can't beat, but you try to anyway.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing, really.
I mean, that is
Makes
what my boyfriend said.
right.
He said part of the fun is that you keep dying and you learn each time something new. Like that's part of the experience.
Yeah. But you disagree.
I just think you're all crazy. I remember one of my first big crushes when I was doing my A levels on this beautiful guy with flippy hair. He was a skateboarder called Toby. And we were texting. I couldn't flirt to save my life. I didn't know. Nothing ever happened because I just was clueless. But he said, yeah, my favorite game is Dark Souls. So I trotted myself over to game, got a pre-loved thingy of Dark Souls, played it for maybe 2 hours, immediately thought, I never want to play this again in my entire life. And I also think I told him that. I was like, I could lie.
Yep.
And change the trajectory of my life and pretend to be a person that enjoys this, or I can live my truth. And I tell you what, Daryl, I'm living my truth right now. Maybe one day I'll change. I'm not too sure, but I don't know.
So that was the end of Toby then, I imagine.
Well, we did. He did ask me to go and see The Hobbit at the cinema. Nothing happened.
Right.
I had no idea. I remember I just sat next to him. I watched The Hobbit. Did not enjoy The Hobbit. Sat there for like 2.5 hours. It's a long movie, I remember. And we didn't look at each other. We didn't even so much as rub shoulders.
Oh, but why would you?
I never thought it was a date. And then 10 years later or whatever, I think I'd had a drink and I just was like, hey, Toby, because I had him on Snapchat. He has no social media, but I still had him on Snapchat, which is embarrassing. I don't use Snapchat anymore. But I sent him a message. I said, hey, was that a date? He was like, yeah, I guess.
What? I mean, right. Okay. This episode.
This whole time.
Yeah, this has gone into like a tangent that I'm kind of like invested in now. So, right. Why would you bring someone for a date to watch The Hobbit, a 3-and-a-bit-hour film? Like, what?
Is it 3 hours?
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
How did I do that?
Have you seen it since?
I hate long films. No, I'm a person, in case you couldn't tell, who has a lot of baseless opinions that I stick by regardless of my truth.
Fine, I respect it.
And one of those things is if your movie is longer than 2 hours and maybe 15 minutes, you're absurd to me.
I mean, I'm just trying to I want to check the running time for this because it's like
please find out.
Yeah.
Because I need to find out how long I sat in silence with this boy. No, how long is it?
This can't be right. It's Wikipedia. Right, I'm just going to say it. 474 minutes. So that is...
It's not.
It can't be.
How long is The Hobbit?
No, wait. Oh no. Have I...
2 hours and 49 minutes.
Yeah, there we go. Right, I'm looking at the
2 hours and 49 minutes. I sat in that cinema. The things I did for... I would say the things I did for love. The things I did for nothing, I guess, actually.
Wow, that's...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing came of that.
No.
So.
Maybe you should watch it with your boyfriend. Just see how it goes.
Well, he did make me watch. I'd not seen Harry Potter before, and he made me watch all the Harry Potters. My ex-boyfriend liked Lord of the Rings, and he made me watch all the director's cuts of Lord of the Rings. And I did it. Because you know what? I try again.
Yes.
I do. I try again.
That's commitment.
Will I try The Hobbit again? No, I won't. For nobody either. For nobody.
Absolutely fair. Yeah, I respect that.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man. Right.
God, that is a tangent. Where were we?
That is a tangent and a half. Right. So
Yeah.
right. So let's just kind of like resume on the
Okay.
career of Gemma. Let's resume.
Oh, okay.
Let's get away from the
Yeah.
474 minutes of the Hobbit series.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So now the thing is, like, amazing, like how you went from like Endemic to Raw Fury, but I'm sure that there's like listeners out there who are kind of like pretty much kind of like wondering, like, what is a community manager? Because I think in this day and age as well, like we spoke about, like there's a lot of hats that you can wear. It could be support tickets, it could be talking to the community, it could be running social medias. But what is like your like day to day currently at Raw Fury? What does that look like?
So with Raw Fury, I work on a variety of different games. Some have already been released, some are due to be released. So my current ones under my belt specifically is Post Trauma, which is an upcoming horror game that I am so excited about. It's the first horror game I've really worked on, so completely in love with that. What else do I work on? Zat Zillions, which is already released. We're releasing a new patch next week. That is an insane deck builder by a team of people that I truly love. Like, I think you really develop relationships and friendships with the developers at Raw Fury, which is nice. What else do I work on? This is where I'm gonna like wake up in the middle of the night and realize I didn't say something. I work on a variety of different games, but those are the ones that are kind of currently dominating my day to day. I also run the main socials, so I have a team, which is amazing. Not my team, but a team, and we all use the main socials, but I run the tone of voice and do ridiculous stuff, and the company encourages me to, which is crazy. I just do that. So yeah, my day-to-day looks really different depending on key beats that are happening with marketing, and what's going on with the community. I think community management looks really different at different companies, but at Raw Fury, it's something that I've definitely endeavored to push for, that we focus more so on like the strategic things and retaining a community more than seeking further engagement. Like, I think that's something that is a big part of social media management that maybe community management does as well, but it's not the focus. So for me, good community management is being as attentive as you can possibly be for existing communities, obviously finding new communities, and ensuring that there is a really clear dialogue between them and game developers and publishers and everybody involved in the process.
No, that's great. No, it's interesting to me as well, because I mean, obviously, like in my job, I'm covering like certain like social media companies and how like developers, like, kind of like like promote their reach and their apps on certain like platforms. It could be Mastodon, it could be Threads, it could be anything else. Has that been a bit challenging as well to kind of see like where the audience is on certain platforms, because it's changed so much in the last few years?
Very much, but I think my regarding like Mastodon and Twitter and stuff, my stance has always been maybe a little bit bleak, which is we're not leaving Twitter.
Yeah.
Unless something insane happens, we're probably not leaving Twitter. It's so deeply ingrained in our careers in marketing and in our social lives. So I've never been too worried about that. But probably for like the entirety of my career, my values have been Twitter is for information and being a little bit silly. Instagram is for information and visuals. TikTok is for being insane, a total gremlin, putting anything out there, regardless of how it looks, throwing shit at a wall, seeing if it sticks, screaming into the void. And Facebook is where you go to die.
Okay.
So that's definitely where I've been, and and Discord is for the innermost conversations and the innermost intimacy with your community.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I've always struggled with Discord, because I always thought it was like almost like a private, like back in the day MSN Messenger chat room group, but I kind of feel like it's like this modern time of like how forums used to be on sites, and it's that now, because I'm sure I saw like a gem cord as well on a Discord.
Oh God, that's for my streams. And again, nobody go there,
Okay.
because it truly is like the most. And this is the thing about my streams and stuff. I don't take it seriously. It is the most degenerate part of me, where if you ever want to see my community management skills, don't look at anything I do for myself. Truly,
Right.
But I do have a Discord that I run. I own and made for UK-based community managers, and we have about 60 people across a variety of different companies, and we've had that for quite a few years now. Just an opportunity for all of us to kind of sense check things, talk about different job opportunities. I think obviously with the current state of the games industry, it's really important to have those kinds of connections. And like I said, Discord is the place where you have those kind of innermost relationships.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I think really kind of like, just to wrap up, like on the Gemma story, really, on this career, like,
Oh,
yeah, I think like, yeah, like basically like, what do you reckon, like, since you started like this career, like, what do you reckon like you're most proud of, like when you look back at like all of these roles that you've had, and is there anything like you perhaps like you want to, anything that you're aiming to do like in this career in certain ways or goals?
I feel like I'm at this stage in my career, and this sounds really sad. I don't have goals. I really don't.
Right.
I feel like I have proven myself as a community manager. Like, I think the things I'm definitely proudest of in that sense is when I ran the Life is Strange TikTok. I created that TikTok account. I built it up to, I think it was like 600,000 followers in like a few months. I was regularly developing viral content. I think that's the thing I feel about myself in this job, is I'm always learning, but if there's anything I know, it's the nichest, most internety insane things, which is why I'm good at TikTok and Twitter specifically. But I also feel like, yeah, like I said, I know what I'm good at. I know what I like to do. I don't really have any more ambitions.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't want my streaming to do anything. I just stream every now and then if I'm playing a game I really like. I don't really want to do any great things with my career in games. I think I'm perfectly happy just like being valued within a team.
Great.
I think one day I want to retire.
Great.
To be honest, I think that's it. I don't know if that's really sad.
No, it's not. I think it's a great answer, because it's, to me, that kind of says that you're content and you're happy in what you've achieved and what you've done. I think that's all we can ask for, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I do feel really lucky, and I do feel really grateful. It's something I talk about with my boyfriend, because he's a 3D character artist in games as well, and he's in a very similar position where he's got a lot more, but he's in this lead artist position, and it's a similar thing where both of us are kind of like, well, we're at the top of the place that we're at, and that we want to be. So now we just do it, and then do it until we're tired, I guess. I guess, or until something happens and I can't, that's it.
Amazing.
I just want to be safe. I just want to have 8 hours of sleep a night. I want to have 3 meals a day, and I want to tweet crazy things on my lunch break.
Yeah, and you want to have your duvet on a vertical radiator, and that's it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yes. I'm so glad you understand.
Yes, it all comes back to it, and and I think that's a perfect time to wrap the episode up on the vertical radiator. It could be the episode title, to be fair. I think we've come this far.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Amazing. Well, Gem, it's been amazing talking to you, and I'm looking forward to all the tweets and the SoundCloud as well, which I stumbled across, which is really good. I really like that. So
thank you.
Just keep doing it. Now, so just to wrap up, like, where can people see your classic tweets, your streams, your SoundClouds before we wrap up?
So on Twitter, which is where I do most of my stuff, it's at Gemmathy. I work for Raw Fury, which is at Raw Fury on Twitter as well. And that's really the key place. You can find everything else from there.
Amazing. No, that's great. So yeah, we'll wrap it there, Jem. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I really
Thank
appreciate
you for
it.
having me.
Not a problem. All right. Well, take
Really.
care until and thank you so much.
No worries.